We are at 5:30, and happy hour is soon to be at hand for Steve and I. For the rest of you, you should get started now. We did this, it's got to be almost 5 months ago, as an opportunity to get to know Steve Schneider, our new GM, who isn't such a new GM anymore.
Right.
Since that time, he's grown a beard. He'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, I'm sure. And spent a lot of time in his office at the center. You'll see him wave from time to time, although probably not tonight, but certainly during golf season, because he was the exhibit in the Eastman Zoo. You know, who's the new guy? And when you walk by his office, everybody got to wave at him, but he doesn't get to spend much time out and about for all the reasons that all the rest of us are quarantining these days. And we thought this would be a great way to be able to get to know Steve, learn a little bit more about how he thinks about things. I have a few questions that I'll ask him, but I'd like to make this as interactive as possible. I would ask again that you mute your lines. If you want to ask a question, you can unmute and verbally ask a question at most any time. You can also send something via chat. I think is chat, maybe chat isn't on here. I'm just trying to see. Yeah, chat, looks like chat is enabled, so you can send a chat message and that'll let me know that you're trying to get a question in as well. I'd prefer it if you not chat about Steve because he can read everything you're putting down. So we'll try and keep it good that way. And hopefully you'll be able to see Steve. If you lose him in the face of crowds, up in the top right, you'll see view, and you can go from gallery to speaker, which will ensure that you get to hear him as he's talking. So Steve, first of all, welcome again to Eastman. It feels like you've been here forever. Steve and I probably talk almost every day. And I've got to tell you that it has been a delight working with him. We're trying to, Steve and I communicate quite well. Lori's in this club as well. We both grew up in upstate New York. So Steve has a few quirks like, what's Dr. Pepper, Steve?
It's pop.
It's pop, yeah. For most of us, it's soft liquor soda. So there'll be a few things where at times I'll have to translate for you just to make sure that everybody knows exactly what Steve is talking about. But most of you know that Steve came from the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission, where he was the CEO. And before that, he spent 11 years as the town manager in Enfield. He has an extensive experience in town management in lots of different places, from Pennsylvania to New York. And all those skills have come in very, very handy, although surprisingly, we didn't think to ask him about his talents in terms of managing a pandemic when he was put into the interview cycle, which finished, by the way, I would add, just about the week that everything locked down. So one of the things Steve talks about is his regrets in terms of the new job is he never even got to shake hands with the folks that offered the job to him. But that tells you how close to the wire we were in terms of getting him on board. So I thought I would go ahead and get started with a couple questions while you're, as an audience here, or thinking about questions you might have. And the first question, Steve, is an easy one. This is a softball question. They won't all be this easy. But what have been your impressions about Eastman in your early days? And of course, you come here with a knowledge, being our next door neighbor over in Enfield. But what things surprised you? What are your early impressions, albeit through the COVID era?
Okay, good. So good evening, everyone. You know, as a next door neighbor in true kind of northern New England fashion, you don't know the town next door to you, right? So in Enfield, you know, we would look funny at people from Canaan or Lebanon or Grantham. Oh, where are those people from? They're strangers. So what I knew about Eastman is coming in here is completely changed from what I know now. The professionalism and commitment that the staff has been a welcome surprise. The openness and welcoming of the community has been a nice surprise as well. And then just the generosity of the members with both their time and their resources and willingness to engage and help us through this pandemic has been really heartening, because there's no way that the 30 or so staff members and 9 board members and council staff and leadership could have managed this without engaging and having all of the Eastman community participate and help us along the way. So that's been very impressive, and it's in New England, northern New England, where we live, we're certainly neighborly, but we're not necessarily inclined to go out and help right away. But that's not been the case here in Eastman, and so I've enjoyed that, and it's been very impressive.
Kind of the flip side of that, what's been the biggest surprise?
That's a good question. The attention to detail has been quite a surprise. The willingness to challenge and engage on everything that we do has been a surprise, welcome surprise. The thoughtfulness has been a surprise. The conscientiousness of the whole that folks here in Eastman value has been a surprise. I wouldn't say that there have been any bad surprises, right? A surprise is a surprise. But I think the attention to detail that folks value here has been a big surprise for me.
So give me an example of that. What do you mean when you say attention to detail?
Well, on the municipal side, we put up a sign on a road that says no parking. I might get one phone call. We put up a sign down in North Cove that says no parking. I got 40 phone calls and probably 50 emails. And so it's that level of connectedness and ownership that you don't necessarily see at the municipal level that you do here. And so that's what I mean by the attention to detail. Folks are engaged and they're not afraid to share, which is good. I'd rather have a community that shares than one that doesn't.
One of the details that you've had to manage through really from your very first day here is COVID and trying to figure out what's open, what isn't open, how to manage the community in a way that keeps people safe and yet keeps as many amenities open as possible. How do you do that? How do you work your way down through that minefield, particularly as you come into a job fairly new and try and figure out what the right answers are?
Carefully. There's not a decision that we make here that hasn't been discussed and talked about with the senior staff and board leadership and council leadership, and we have a wonderful group of medical professionals that have volunteered their time, that have assisted us in helping us develop guidelines that are right for Eastman. It's been tense. There's no doubt about that. Again, on the planning world or on the municipal side, there's not a lot of things that we do that carry the weight that managing in a pandemic does. So it definitely weighs on you. And so I think that environment, that atmosphere, is certainly unique, but it also it makes it very real in terms of the decisions that we make. They have a real impact and can have a really big impact on the safety and well-being of this community. And that's not something that you do normally in the municipal world or in the planning world. So it's been a little awkward, just because, again, you can't kind of connect to the people. I've certainly managed crises where we've had big ice storms and people have lost power, or we've had deaths in the community. You're able to connect and see somebody in person. And so that here, you're not able to do that. You know, we can talk through a window or through Zoom or through a mask, but it's not the same. So that, in that respect, it's been a little awkward trying to connect to the community as they all struggle with managing this pandemic in their own personal lives. You know, it definitely keeps you on your toes. I'm not going to say that I look forward to our meetings every Tuesday morning with our health panel, but I look forward to it because I'm learning something with that group, and they're engaging us and listening to, you know, this group of professionals debate and analyze and walk through what we do. It's not enjoyable, but it's satisfying to know that they're willing to take the time, and what we're doing ends up impacting this community, hopefully in a beneficial way.
Yeah, it's a ritual every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. For a lot longer than any of us ever figured would happen. And it's just trying to get the best medical and health advice. There's an epidemiologist and 2 medical doctors on the panel that are all Eastman residents, all give their time freely. And we're very fortunate to have them, but they agonize over these decisions as if their own families were the ones who were going to be impacted by it, because in a real sense, we are a small community and the decisions we make do have an impact on each and every one of us.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, if you have questions you'd like to ask, this is going to be an open forum. So probably the best and most efficient way to do so is to indicate via the chat feature that you'd like to ask a question, and I can call on you and you can unmute your microphone. Or I can just keep asking Steve questions, and they'll get progressively tougher as the evening goes on. So we'll see if we can stump the new GM.
That won't be too difficult.
Okay. One of the things that the pandemic has brought out is the differing challenges for differing parts of our community, specifically some of the generational issues that exist. So the challenges that I have would be different than somebody who has a child who is going to the schools, or perhaps not going to the schools when they're put on hold. Can you talk a little bit about how those things play out and some of the actions that you've taken to try and understand and address the differing needs within our community?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it goes back to folks here aren't afraid to share and reach out. And so when we were I think when we made the decision, the very difficult decision to cancel camp, summer camp, we heard loud and clear from a lot of our younger families that, hey, wait a minute, what are we going to do? This is something we were looking forward to, and how do we keep our families active and engaged and still enjoying this community throughout the summer? And so the end result has been that we formed kind of a young family working group that meets monthly to help us work through some of the issues that are unique to those Eastman residents that do have a younger family. We heard from them very early on that we still have to have activities. You know, we still have to try to engage our very young residents here, our very young community members. So, you know, we're lucky to have an outstanding staff down at South Cove, led by Leslie Moses, who worked with her group to come up with, you know, a summer virtual camp worth of activities. So it obviously isn't as good as the summer camp, being there in person, but it you know, it was something, and it got folks talking and active. And so, you know, we continue to meet every month, as I said. One of the other challenges that young families face is, you know, how to you know, feed our families. And so we suggested to Forbes that maybe we could have a family meal night. And so Tuesdays has been that night for them. So, you know, you're able to go into Forbes and buy one meal, and it's ready to go, and you can go home and you're good to go. You know, right as school was beginning to start up again, the school district reached out to us to see if we would be able to host a grade in one of our buildings. And so we went through the exercise of figuring out, can we have, the third grade or the fourth grade within one of our facilities? And it was just an example, I think, of Eastman's willingness to at least go down the path and investigate whether or not it's something that we could do. And as it turned out, we could have hosted about 100 kids in the South Cove facility because there were, in and outs of the building that didn't interact with, the fitness room or the pool. So those places could still be open. As it turns out, the school was able to do what they needed to do within their own facility, but it was another example of our willingness to take on that challenge of making sure that all our residents feel welcome.
One thing I heard about is these intergenerational hikes. Could you shed some light on that? I see one of our tour guides here, Mr. Karish, but talk a little bit more about how that works, Steve.
So again, it was one of those great suggestions that came out of that young family team, and I think, and so how do we make sure that all of our community is connected? And so here was an opportunity where we had kids that are home on Wednesdays because that's the flex day from school for both Grantham and Lebanon. And so how can we get them out and about? And we were able to connect with some of our more seasoned residents. And I would say that the experience has been more enjoyable for more seasoned folks than it has been for the young folks, but I think it's been a hit for all so far. And I don't know if any of our tour guides would like to chime in on that.
Well, I'll just tell you, it was wonderful. At one point, this third grader grabs my hand and starts walking along with me hand in hand. And I kind of wondered what was going on, but he wanted my complete attention, and that was his way of doing it. And he wanted to ask me to give him science questions to work on. We had a great time.
You should add that one.
I hope you gave him engineering questions. Yeah, Carole and I ended up with 3 boys that I guess
Sixth and third.
Sixth and third, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what was so impressive is everything I'd show them, they would spout back. They learned about plants and tracks and all kinds of things.
Invasives.
But yeah, and remembered everything I told them. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Very cool. I see Elaine Lasher has her hand raised. I didn't know you could raise hands, but that's a good way to let me know you have something to say. So Elaine, go ahead and unmute your mic and have at it.
Okay. Hi, Steve. I want to change direction a little bit and ask you a question that you would think I would know because I've lived here forever and, try to keep tabs on what's going on. But there's a whole lot of, the people came in a wave around the pandemic. Some people came and moved into their houses that they usually just vacation at. And there's a lot of work being done on a lot of houses and stuff everywhere. In particular, I want to ask about construction trucks on our roads. And, I've had to negotiate around a lot of them on my dirt side road where I live. But there are now a whole string of them up on road around the lake, around a house that's having a major work done. And I don't see, there's like no cones. There's no, and there's a lot of blind curves around. And all of a sudden you come up and there's a truck backing up into the middle of the road around the lake and stuff. And I'm just wondering, are there any rules on these contractors about, being safe for those of us who are just trying to make our way down roads and, not used to having trucks and heavy equipment just parked at roadsides all over the place.
Yeah. So certainly on a roadway like Road Around the Lake, absolutely there should be those triangles out and about so that folks understand that there's something up ahead. On a dead end dirt road, maybe not as much, but we have talked about the impact of the heavy vehicles on our roads. In fact, we talked about it, I think, last week at our senior staff meeting, specifically more about the weight of the vehicles and what they can do. But you're right, we are busy and we are full, and so a gentle reminder to our contractors that hey, this isn't the normal Eastman scene, that we're not quite as empty as we normally are, and so you need to take a little special care with both the location of those parked vehicles, but also kind of as you're driving through the community. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Especially on the one on Road Around the Lake, because there are blind curves and all of a sudden the stuff is there, and these guys are working. Is ECC or the homeowner kind of responsible for telling them they need to put out some of those orange markers or something? I don't know. I'm just trying to prevent some kind of a accident.
A vehicle. Yep. Yeah. It's a combination of both, but yeah, we can certainly get some reminders out.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for breaking the ice, Elaine. Janie, I see your hand up.
I'd like to extend that please also to the ECA maintenance crew. They've been doing a lot of cutting along Road Around the Lake, and today it was at the end of Trillium, and it was a blind corner and it was up and over a blind hill. And as I progressed south, there was no warning, and then there was no help to make sure that I was getting over that hill safely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think Fox was out today. They had pretty good signs, and they actually had a flagman when I went through, but the second time. But they were out and about today.
It was Fox. Okay.
Yeah. Well, just maybe a little bit on what they're up to, Steve.
So yeah, as everyone knows, we don't suffer from a lack of trees, but it does require quite a bit of management of our canopy and forest, and so there's quite a bit of tree work that needs to be done, whether it's around our own infrastructure or private tree work that needs to be done. Anticipating next season and getting things done and ready so that our roadways and amenities are opened up. But yeah, we're actively out there doing a lot of tree work, and that's something that we'll be doing probably all winter long, if the weather permits.
Well,
we're probably a few years away from the emerald ash borer really taking hold and making a noticeable difference on our forest. But we've done some work inventorying that, at least on ECA property, and I know that private homeowners have asked for folks to come out and kind of evaluate the ash tree impact on their own property. So we've got some work to do in that respect, but we've got a couple of years to prepare for it. But the work we're doing now is also important.
Yeah, the trees I saw that were being worked on were dead trees that were immediately adjacent to the road. So the fact that we don't wait for a windstorm or a snowstorm to take them down is actually good news for those of us that need to be able to get around. Other questions? Mary Niles. Oh, she froze.
I had a question about the air ventilation. Something that.
Mary, we got a problem with your computer connection.
What?
You're kind of frozen.
I understand all these rooms, they put in a system, but they couldn't do it in the right room or something. I was just trying to figure out exactly what all that meant.
I think I understood. So I think the question was about air ventilation at the Draper Room. And so we've done a lot of work both here at the center and at South Cove. Specifically at the center, we've changed out our filters so that they're now MERV 13 filters, which are, you know, they get about 90% of the things the contaminants that are in the air out of the air. We've also rebalanced the air into the Draper Room so that we've doubled the air circulation within that room, so that that room has as good of an airflow as we can get in there, in addition to the MERV filters. So the airflow within that particular room has really improved. You know, at South Cove, we put in MERV 13 filters again throughout the building, but we also, in the fitness room and in the pool, we put in a UV light treatment, and so it's attached to the HVAC system. So it's not a UV light that you would be able to notice. It's attached to the system, and as the air flows through the system, it gets treated with the UV light, and it treats it so that the air that comes back out again is disinfected. So, you know, we're actively reviewing kind of all different approaches to making sure that our public spaces are clean. You know, there are a couple other avenues that we're still investigating, just because I don't know that any one thing is going to be the answer to making sure that whether the Draper Room or the center or, you know, the rooms at South Cove are clean. So, you know, we're very engaged in that.
I'm sorry, my audio off. Is it not on? Can you hear me?
A little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Other
Thank you,
questions?
Mary.
John, I see your hand up.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Bill. Quick question, Steve. Can you give me an update on the status of what the current thinking is on the amenities for the winter as things start to surge around us? I mean, will we still have cross-country open, you know, those type of thing? Will there be a pond to skate on, that type of thing? Or can you give me a little highlight on what your thinking is?
So normally my computer is set up in a different part of my desk, and you'd be able to see my whiteboard. Part of my whiteboard has a section of cold weather activities and what we need to prepare for. We started planning for winter probably in September. We expect, much like golf and our beaches to be, as they were crowded, we expect our winter activities to be as popular. And so managing the crowd is kind of been our focus, but we expect there to be, you know, cross-country skiing. We expect there to be skating, sledding. We're talking with Forbes about having some outdoor eating opportunities or après skiing or après winter activities, so that folks have an opportunity to be outside and still socialize. You know, what we're hearing from our health team is that if you're outside, you're safer. You're not safe, but you're safer. So if we can make sure that our activities are still active and going full bore, then that's our goal. We have made the decision, though, to close our yurt. So the yurt that's out there, we're going to close for the season, just because it's unsupervised, and, you know, it promotes that indoor atmosphere that's kind of on the unsafe side. So, but for just about everything else, we're open for business, and as long as the weather is cold and we've got some snow, we should be good. The skating rink is up. The sledding hill has been massaged a little bit. I know that some folks have been out skiing already. We've got a Internally here within the staff, we've got a winter communications email blast that goes out every day. And today we had some pictures of folks, some tracks that were out there on the golf course. So it doesn't take much snow for folks to feel the itch and to kind of get out there, which is good. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Other questions? You can unmute yourself. Debbie, you trying to sneak in?
Yep, can you hear me? I have a
Yep.
question for you, Steve. It's kind of taking it a different direction, but Gary and I are, we live in Massachusetts and we're up there, as Bill just said, not that frequently, but we'll try to be more. But I'm curious, you know, there are a lot of residents up in the Eastman community of all types, like us, and plenty of full-timers. And what's your expectation for yourself about getting to know everybody, or 50% of the people, or, you know, what's a way to help you do that and make you feel like you kind of have a sense of the entire community?
It's not going to be easy. I'd love to be able to meet everybody. Mary Niles this summer suggested that I come out and introduce myself, or she introduced me at one of the Eastman Presents outdoor lectures this summer. And so I was able to, you know, briefly take my mask off. You could see my face. I could see everybody and get a little wave and just introduce myself. So it's places and opportunities like that were helpful during the summertime. During the wintertime, it's going to be harder. You know, I've let the special place chairs know that I'm always available to come and go to a meeting. And I have been to several of those where I've, you know, just introduced myself and talked a little bit about, you know, where I came from and my experiences so far. So it's not easy. And it's probably not going to be easy for another few months, but I fully expect to be able to, you know, participate and engage with as many residents as possible. It's one of the things that I really enjoyed the most about working for a local government, is that you get to know your community members, right? So being in a small town as the manager for 11 years, you know, you get to know, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you become a part of the community. And so that's my goal here, is to do the same.
Great. Hey, Bill, can I ask another one?
Sure.
This is a real practical question. How's the vaccine going to get distributed to Eastman? This is a very parochial question. Like, can I get a vaccine there faster than I can get it down here? You know?
That's a good question. I do participate in, you know, every week the state has, you know, their emergency management operations center. And we talked about vaccines probably a month ago, because they were getting ready to, you know, they have the plan for distributing these things. And so, you know, the goal is to have these things distributed to, just as we heard, kind of nationally, to frontline workers and, you know, those folks that have underlying conditions first. You know, currently the vaccines require quite a bit of extra care and refrigeration and freezing that we don't have the capacity for, unfortunately. So the first two vaccines that came out require some deep freeze. I think there's a third vaccine that you may be able to store at a reasonable temperature that, you know, potentially we could become a site. I know that we've hosted, you know, flu clinics here before. So we're active in the public health world. You know, one of our community members is one of the leaders in the Upper Valley for public health. And so, you know, I bug that person every once in a while about, hey, can we get a little extra testing here? Or can we be a potential vaccine site? So unfortunately, we're not at the top of the list, but doesn't mean that we won't stop asking.
Other questions? So Steve, since the last time we saw you, this beard, what's the beard all about?
So if you Google my name, every once in a while, a picture come up with me of about 7 days of growth of just the mustache. And the police department in Enfield challenged the male employees to, it was called Movember, and it's for men's health awareness, so prostate and testicular cancer, and November is that month. And so the Valley News came and took a picture of all of the police officers and myself, and we ended up on the front page of the Valley News one year. And Movember became kind of No Shave November. And so, and I did fundraise for a few years, but now I just like to grow the beard in the colder months. So it becomes more so a personal thing for me. It does disappear probably, you know, springtime. My wife finally says that's enough.
Yeah, so, I think he shaved it right before the interview started.
I did.
Back in for the GM job.
He certainly did.
So what's your family think of all this? And tell us just a little bit about your family.
Yeah, you bet. So later this month, I'll be celebrating my 25th wedding anniversary. So my wife Sarah and I have been married 25 years. We both, thank you. We met at Plattsburgh State as undergrads. I graduated with a degree in history, and she graduated with a much more useful degree in speech language pathology, which is what she is currently. She works for the Family Place over in Norwich, and works with the 18 months to 3-year-old population. And if you were to watch her do what she does, you'd say it's just playing. But you know what? That's what it takes kind of at that age group and getting, you know, language development. So for the last 6 months, she's been working from home, and she's been busier than ever because she doesn't have to drive all over Vermont to kind of go to families' homes, is what she was doing before. We have a son, Owen, who's 20. He is a junior at UNH, studying bioengineering, another useful degree. And he is still in Durham. He lives off campus. UNH has been very good at making sure that their students are tested. So he gets tested twice a week while he's there. He's been safe. And then we have a daughter, Isabel, who is a senior at Mascoma. You know, trying to figure out what to do in the fall for her has been interesting because you're not able to kind of tour and engage in college visits like you would before. You know, she's not, you know, you've got a whole generation of 18-year-olds that are figuring out, you know, should I go to college in the fall, or should I take a gap year, or should I defer a year? So we're interested in figuring all that stuff out right now. So we've lived in Enfield for 15 years. Before that, we were in Batavia, New York for 4 years, which is halfway between Buffalo and Rochester. I'm originally from Syracuse, so it was kind of a homecoming of sorts. And I said Syracuse the right way, Bill. Those of us that are afflicted with the upstate accent, there's a particular way that you get to say the word if you've lived there long enough. Let's see what else. I was able to get my master's in public administration from the University of Vermont in the mid-90s, and that was kind of my entry into, you know, local government. And I was lucky enough to have a really dynamic group of professors and mentors at UVM that said, you know what, local government might be a good thing for you. And so off I went, and it's been a wonderful career.
Questions? Tony Taylor, I haven't heard you this quiet for this long, and I can't remember. You have to unmute.
You are so, yes, you're correct. I've been told that. Absolutely correct, Bill. Andy's here, and he says you're unmuted. Yeah, I'm muted. Well, it's interesting you say that. I was thinking, what a calm meeting that we're having now. And I know, Steve, you're going to be going to woodlands and wildlife, and we have some wildlife issues that you have to deal with. And I became more aware about how some of these issues now, and how, because of the pandemic, and I'm in the mental health field, how things got within our social media, within Eastman, our Facebook, and different kinds of comments. And I just found that I just wanted to know what your preliminary thoughts are about that, and our usage of social media and the listserv in regard to the emotion that's come out. Now, that's just one of many issues. And I'm aware that, you see, I'm not so quiet, Bill. Bye. You see, I brought up a controversial issue, so go for it.
Yeah, there's a lot to that question. Social media is, it's a reality. It's part of our society. I'm not an active participant on listserv or Facebook, but that doesn't mean I don't hear and not aware of everything that's kind of happening. So with respect to, our wildlife issues, we had some concerns about some beaver activity in a couple locations within Eastman. One up off Logging Trail and another past the polishing ponds. And they presented two separate kind of environments for addressing the beavers. Up along Logging Trail, the beaver was attempting to kind of dam up a culvert because they perceive it as a waterway, and so it's just natural for them to try to dam it up. And our goal was our goal always is to make sure that we strike the right balance between protecting private property and our infrastructure, but also preserving the natural beauty and experience that people expect here at Eastman. So Logging Trail, we were able to gate up the culvert end so that it would discourage a beaver from going back there. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And then along the polishing ponds, the beaver activity was potentially impacting, again, private property, but also Eastman infrastructure, potentially some roads, but more specifically a ski trail. And so we heard pretty loudly and clearly that was that we should come up with an alternative. And so we removed the beaver traps fairly quickly. No beavers were trapped, and no beavers were harmed as a result of any activity that we did. So yeah, you're right, Tony. On Thursday, Woodlands and Wildlife, we're going to have a discussion about how we can better live with the beaver, right, and or wildlife. And I've asked that group to assist us in identifying those areas that are off the beaten path, right? So we're going to know beaver activity alongside the roadways because that's where we're doing our work. So we're going to see that stuff. But help us identify those areas that are in the woods or not alongside a road where there may be beaver activity. And then also help us identify ways that we can allow the beaver to exist and still be able to maintain our infrastructure and so that it doesn't impact people's property. And I think we'll be able to get there. In the brief time that I've known Brad Truax, the presentations that he puts together are incredibly comprehensive and thorough, and I expect the same to be done for our discussion about beavers on Thursday. And I expect that the Woodlands and Wildlife Group will be receptive to assisting us and helping us identify, those problem areas, but also ways that we can coexist with the beaver and our wildlife. Social media will very quickly let you know if folks have an issue, which is okay. As I said earlier, I'd rather have a community that's engaged than one that's not. because you know kind of exactly where they're coming from, and you're not blindsided, and there's not a surprise. As a manager, that's the last thing you want is surprises, and so I appreciate that, you know, that interaction and that ability for folks to communicate and connect. Does it always promote the best civil discourse? Maybe not, but you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic and people's you know, tempers are a little exposed.
Thank you for that explanation. It was, I appreciate how you stated it, and I know you've got many emails and phone calls about that issue.
I did.
I'm sure you did, but and I admire you handled it very well. I was getting concerned when I saw that the town of Enfield had that position open again. I said, I hope you're not reading. I hope you're not reading, looking at Indeed or anything. When I saw that position open, I said, hey, you better not be thinking of anything.
No.
But thank you. That was very, very well explained, and I appreciate all you've done in regard to that issue and handling the controversy. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Other questions out there? Well, I took my beaver question. I was going to ask that. Steve, one thing you've shown some interest in your time here is the way that we communicate within the community, and specifically the web portal that we have for members. I know there's a little bit of work on that, and that you have some particular passion around that. Can you share a little bit about what is going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the web portal and the software package that we're reviewing and hope to establish here, it does two things. One is that it consolidates kind of the back office sausage making that we do, you know, the processing of payments and scheduling and, you know, all the things, the accounts, the work that we do, the member services stuff that right now is split up into several kind of silos and databases that don't communicate well with one another. So the software that we hope to engage with will consolidate that into one spot. The other part is kind of the front-facing web presence and portal that the community would then use to, you know, to reserve, you know, time at in the pool or the fitness center, or, you know, make payments for, you know, assessments or reservations, and it's a fine needle to thread, because there's not a lot of software programs that do those two kind of very distinct things. But we think we've found a package, and the company that we're hoping to work with has been working with Quechee Lakes over, you know, across the river in Vermont. And they have a very similar community to ours. You know, they may do things a little bit bigger or differently than we do, but for the most part, you know, we're fairly close. And so if you're interested, you can certainly look at their site, but we've also got some demos that people can kick around as well. You know, it's just it's a way to improve our ability, meaning the organization's ability to communicate with the community, but also for the community to communicate with one another. You know, it's not that our system that we have now is bad, but it's awkward and it's clunky and it's dated, and it needs to be improved, and we can do better. And so that was really the impetus behind, you know, investigating and engaging with this current firm. You know, we kicked the tires on a bunch of different outfits before we settled on this one, and we haven't completely settled on this one, because while the organization, the employees have done quite a bit of work, we still need to make sure that what we end up securing works for the community members, for the residents here. And so over the next couple of months, we're gonna we're going to try hard to make sure that people have an opportunity to ask questions and make sure that their concerns are met. But it's a big process, and it's one that's not going to be done overnight. And we think that it's probably from the day that we say, yes, this is the company we want to go with, to us saying, yep, we're ready to go live, it's going to be about 6 months. And it's going to require quite a bit of work on our side to make sure that people are trained and ready and comfortable with the change. This isn't, we're not going from typewriters to computers. We're going from one kind of software system to another. So for the most part, people are kind of used to, doing things online. So we've kind of crossed a big hurdle already. And now it's going to be trying to figure out all the fun things that hopefully this new system can do for Eastman.
Yeah. You're kind of in the middle of your first budget season. The Finance and Budget Committee is meeting on Thursday and Friday. He's looking over his whiteboard at all the things he's got written down. So yeah. What are your impressions of putting a budget together in Eastman, and what do we have to look forward to?
It's a much faster process than the municipal side. The putting the numbers together takes about the same amount of time. I will say that the departments here, they take months to put together their numbers, and they do a thorough job of making sure that what we're asking for is meets our needs, and the dollar amounts that we're asking for are accurate. What the Finance and Budget Committee is going to do in a day and a half takes the Budget Committee at a municipal level 6 months to do. So from that perspective, it's a little quicker. But the feedback we've been getting all along, kind of through the process, has been outstanding. The priorities for this budget have been to kind of maintain what we have, and make sure that we're not going to lose any levels of service that we're providing. We're still in the middle of this pandemic, and we're unsure as to how long it's going to last and what the impact is going to be on for our residents. So, that was kind of our marching orders as we went into kind of preparing this budget. But it's always fun. Budgeting is 65% science and 35% art. There's always an art to this that you have to get creative in how you approach difficult financial questions. I think, and so I enjoy that, believe it or not. And I did enjoy putting the budget together for the town of Enfield. I don't have to input every number like I did in Enfield. We've got a bunch of other people here that are much better than I am. And we've got some fantastic folks that can, do some deep analysis in terms of, developing trends and figuring out, are we spending our money the right way? So it's been good. I'm looking forward to, the conversations that we have Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, the link for that is in highlights this week. So if anybody has time and interest, all day Thursday, Friday morning as well, you too can see the details on the budget. We have, like most homeowners in Grantham, a headwind called increased property taxes that we'll need to deal with. At the same time, the staff has done a really good job of managing expenses this year, and I think that will hold us in good stead as we try and think about how we put together numbers for next year. Other questions? Sue Johnson, you got to unmute yourself.
There, I'm muted. Thank you. I'm wondering if Steve could give us an update on the sale of the properties, the returned properties that were offered to a couple of developers, and what's progressing on those.
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of the work that I did with the Regional Planning Commission was around housing. And to no one's surprise, we're lacking in housing throughout the Upper Valley. So it's not a surprise to me that when Eastman said, yeah, we've got some empty lots that we're willing to let be developed again, that a developer wouldn't say, you betcha, thank you, please, and how can I get some more? So the agreement we have with Yankee Barn Home has been successful, and they have, I think, 3 homes in the process of being built, and I think another property with which they're ready to close on. We have another, and those I believe are all in Springfield. We have another outfit out of Waterville Valley that is willing to build a spec house in the Enfield part of Eastman. So these properties are very attractive. I expect that it won't take long for Yankee Barn to come back and say, you know what, we're ready to investigate, other parts of Eastman so that we can continue this progress. It's been over the last 3 or 4 months, this program has really exploded, and I'm not surprised. And my guess is that it will continue to be active for the foreseeable future, because there is such a need for the type of housing that's within Eastman.
Yeah, just a couple of comments, and then I'll get back to we've had a record year in terms of home sales here. This is a very attractive place to be. It's interesting, we have a property in downtown Boston. You couldn't sell it if you wanted to right now, but the homes up here have been very, very attractive for folks. So that has helped with demand as well. And of course, each of these retired lots that gets developed, and we're talking about small numbers, but each lot that gets developed spreads the cost of operating our community around a broader group of homes. So that's goodness for all of us. Sue, did you have a follow-up, or do we answer your question?
I just wondered if the homes that Yankee Barn was doing, are they on spec, or have they already been sold to a buyer?
My understanding is that the first home they did, they had a buyer. And I believe the second one they're building was on spec. And I'm not sure about the third, but yeah, it won't take long. Honestly, it won't take long for these things to be sold.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's good news.
Yes, it
I've been
is.
trying to figure out why the Valley News in the real estate section every day, Coldwell Banker has Eastman, but it's sold. It's kind of interesting to put up an ad for a home in your real estate section that you can't buy, but that's the way it goes. Dave.
Yeah, a follow-up question. Was my understanding that there was some difficulty putting lots up for sale in the Grantham section of Eastman? Has that been worked out?
Now, we still have some work to do with Grantham. So the properties that have been sold so far have all been either in Enfield or Springfield.
Can you summarize the nature of that problem?
Not quickly. It's my understanding is that there was an understanding between the town and Eastman maybe 10 years ago that said, as long as you keep these lots as retired, we're not going to tax you on them. And as soon as you take them from retired to being actively marketed, we're going to begin to tax you on those at fair market value. So we've got a total of 107 lots within the entire retired lot system. The majority of them are in Grantham. They're not all in Grantham, but the majority. So I've reached out to the town, and they're interested in having further conversations, because it's been a decade since I think we've really sat down and said, here's how it's going to benefit both parties. And I think it makes sense that it would benefit both the town and Eastman for there to be an understanding reached where these are still retired lots. And when they get sold, it's only going to benefit both. It's going to reduce the retired lot and add some value to you know, the Eastman community, but it's also going to add some value to, you know, the town of Grantham as well, and bring in, you know, those younger folks that the Upper Valley is desperate for to kind of keep it a functioning region going forward. So there's work to do, Dave, and the town, I think, is interested in continuing the conversations, which is encouraging. The town's attorney in Grantham was the same one we had in Enfield, and so I have a lot of experience with him, and he's very good, and he's very sharp, and he's very tough on the people that he's negotiating with. So I expect it not to be an easy process, but I think at the end of the day, we can come to some type of understanding that makes sense for both Eastman and the town of Grantham.
Sue?
I just wanted to follow up. At the last meeting, you talked about doing a bid on a piece of property off of Dunbar Hill Road. It was up for auction. And what happened with that?
Our bid was not accepted.
$100 didn't do it?
$100 wasn't accepted, no. But my understanding is that most of the properties that they had in Eastman, the select board didn't accept them. And it's, you know, that was always a struggle that I had with select boards in Enfield, was when we acquired property through tax deeding, let's not hold on to it, let's get rid of it. And for whatever reason, select boards, you know, they have a different set of perspectives and understandings, and so our bid was not accepted, but I'm not sure that a lot of them were. So.
Okay, I was curious.
Yep.
So look, everyone, we advertised this as an hour and we are just a couple minutes over. So I think we will wrap it up here. I would say that you know, I have the privilege of working with Steve every day. He gets embarrassed, by the way, when I start to say nice things about him, so I usually don't. But I will close by saying that we are very, very fortunate to have Steve here. He is a terrific general manager, a great partner to work with. And we will continue to look for forums like this to get him out and help him to meet people. His reputation in Enfield was one of being very engaged in the community. So you can imagine how torturing it is for him to be in an environment where you just can't get out and meet people. But hopefully this gives you a chance to get to know him a little bit better. If you have questions, Steve at eastmannh.org works in terms of getting him an email, and he is very responsive in terms of that. So Steve, thank you for giving up a portion of your evening and your happy hour. Thank all of you for joining us for this, and we'll sign off for now.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.